Hello Paisanos, it's Ian63. I'm very sorry if I'm late making my Mouse Pie for Hire review. It's because I was also playing through, of course, Pragmata and Tomodachi Life Living the Dream and stuff. So obviously I was playing all three of these video games at once. And yeah, that's one of the reasons why it took a very long time to make the Mouse Pie for Hire review. But I finished it along with Pragmata and almost done with Tomodachi Life Living the Dream and stuff. So yeah, but here's my final send-off farewell review to Mouse Pie for Hire. I finally finished Let's Playing it. And what an amazing adventure and just peak cinema video game this was. And yeah, but to tell you the history about the video game, it was revealed, it was announced back in 2023 and stuff, and it was a lot more different and stuff, and then it ended up getting delayed for 2 years and stuff, which I'm honestly happy it did, because honestly, it could mean the game's quality could finally improve and be a lot more better, and that's what it did eventually. It ended up finally improving, a lot of adjustments, and basically to sum it up, it's basically like if Cuphead was basically a first-person shooter instead of a platformer, or basically, or other words, it could be Mickey meets Bioshock, but yeah, pretty much. And that was Mouse Pie for Hire, and the game came out, and it was overwhelmingly positive, well, except for this particular review. But yeah, the reviews was really great, and I obviously played it, and man, I'm so happy I did, honestly. And yeah, pretty much. But anyways, let's go ahead and start reviewing Mouse Pie for Hire. So starting off from part 1 and stuff, which is right here. Obviously, I already like the Jack Pepper's humming and stuff. Ba-da-ba-da-da. Okay, I'm sorry for the cringe. And then we start off with of course, the sexy intro. Okay, I'm sorry for saying that. The saxophone was just eargasm, honestly. And obviously, I check obviously the detective mode, but let's get on to the game. So we start off obviously with Jack having to obviously this particular, corrupted mayor and stuff, who has a name. But then after, the mayor, pretty much unfortunately, hold on, where was I? Oh yeah, here it is. After when we try to arrest him, we ended up falling and stuff. And that's where the game starts. Well, it actually shows like a prequel, of what happened before this event, but yeah. But yeah, here it is. And Mouseburg. Yes, be prepared to hear a lot of cheese jokes. But I overall think the story is amazing, honestly. Here is Jack Pepper, our main character that we play as. And obviously, he gives very Leon Scott Kennedy, Batman, and a bit of... Who else? Leon Scott Kennedy, Batman... And maybe a bit of Wolverine vibes also, but mostly Jack Pepper is a detective and stuff. And he has to investigate, the crime basically happening in the Mouseburg with all the corruption happening. And yeah. So yeah. Just like what he says, trouble, what do you do? And yeah. But anyways, that was part 1. That was, of course, part 1 and stuff. And now we move on to part 2, which is right here. If I can load it. Apology for that. All right.
Jack, over here.
And we meet up with our first friend named Wanda.
Care to toss me a cheese crumb, or are we doing our usual tug of war?
I can give you more than a crumb, Jack.
So yeah, after we meet up with Wanda and stuff, we then go through our first, first actual stage, I would say, where we investigate basically what's happening to this area and stuff. And yeah, pretty much.
Well, who isn't?
And then we find out with our first guy, who is Steve, basically. And yeah, pretty much. So now, that was part 2. So now for part 3 and stuff. We explore more of this, trying to find for Steve and stuff and go through these posters. And I really like these newspapers. They look really nice, honestly. It's a 1930s, noir stuff style, but honestly, even then, it still looks beautiful. If you guys watch that Circle Tunes video about how good graphics are killing, video games, well, the Western AA market that he's referring to, not the Japanese one. or the Eastern one. But it's basically saying that, you know, a good refined art style like this or Okami age a lot more better, or Neon White also age a lot more better than something that's too realistic.
The doors and ominous moaning. You didn't do this
And
to
yeah.
yourself?
Why? Hell no. It was a damn extras. Came out of nowhere.
And then obviously you go through the movie the movie theater and stuff, and rescue that guy, and yeah, pretty much. So then finally, that was part 3. So now part 4. And then obviously, you know, we go through this attic and stuff, and then of course battling more enemies and stuff, and we meet up with another guy here. And we're pretty much almost done with this, you know, detective and stuff with this
And a few cold fondues. He gets into some real...
and yeah, we learn more about this guy and stuff, and yeah. And this P office, and of course this private office that you're in is really nice. And that was part 4, and now for part 5, which is right here. And also, to talk about the weapons and stuff, the weapons are very dang nice in this game. They work pretty dang well, honestly. Obviously, if you play Doom, Quake, and Duke Nukem, Wolfenstein, or any other FPS 90s game, you may recognize these type of weapons and stuff. And of course, we meet up with Stilton and stuff, our former sergeant, you know, who helped us. Since, as you may know, Jack was a military guy who served in the, you know, army. And then became a police officer, but left because of how rampage and corrupted it is, and became a private investigator to solve Mouseburg's crime. And then after that, we go through this very odd science area with the brain. And then we beat up some robot and stuff. And yeah, pretty much. And we beat the hell out of that robot and stuff, and we're done with that and stuff. So yeah. So that was part 5, and now we move on to part 6. And yeah, so after that, and then we get introduced to a new character named Tammy and stuff. And this is where we can upgrade our weapons and stuff. And yeah, it's pretty basic, but I appreciate it for being, you know, easy and straight to the point. And of course, now we get to our second crime, which is the shrews getting attacked by the corrupted cops and stuff. And now we have to, you know, infiltrate these guys and stuff, find out, okay, what the hell's going on and stuff. And yeah. And we get another cool cutscene and stuff. And yeah. And stuff like that. And that's part 6, and now moving on to part 7. And of course, we meet up with a new guy named John Brown, who gives us, you know, some very cool beer. Thank you, John. You're a real hero of the story. You're a real hero of this story and stuff, because, you know, you're just being very simple and giving us a nice cold, you know, beer and stuff, especially in this chaotic crime. And yeah, and we explore the underground subway area to find what the heck is going on with this shrew abuse and stuff. And then we explore a warehouse and this underground area, sewer and stuff. And yeah, and then after that, yeah, basically. Speaks my mind. You know what else I didn't see on the bingo card? I never thought we would, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah. I never thought that Mouse Pie for Hire, Pragmata, Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, and also another game called Replaced, which I haven't bought that game yet though, because I completely forgot about it, but it's on my wish list, and I'm probably gonna buy it, along with Sorrows today. And yeah, that was not on my bingo card, for all of them to come on the same week. But yeah. And then that was part 7. Now part 8, we learn more about the crimes, and then we have a particular individual, unfortunately. But this person is evil. Well, not necessarily like full antagonist evil, but like just sort of just a bit of a bitch and stuff. That's all what I can say. And then after that, we get a new area unlock and stuff, where we go to this, ware C area. Is it a warehouse? I can't really tell sometimes because it's too black and white, but I think it's a dock area. And then after we go through this dock area, that was part 8. So now to part 9. Taking load and stuff. Sorry about that, guys. It's taking its time to load. Okay, here it is. So now, obviously, here's part 9. And as we're making our way out of the docks and stuff, hitting some more idiots on the way. And after that, we jump and dash and stuff. I should mention about the dashing and jumping. They really also feel pretty good, honestly. What I've been liking about this game so far is its overall kinetic movement and stuff. And it just feels really right and good. I wouldn't say it's not on, like, Doom 2016 or Ultra Kill level of movement or Angerfoot. But it's still, like, almost right there. I would say a good worthy second. It feels just as good. But I think it is missing some, like, maybe, like, a parrying something. Like an Ultra Kill. But I can understand why they won't go for that, because obviously not every FPS game needs one. And yeah. I also just like the mix between both 2D and 3D here. It just feels really surreal, honestly. I know we've seen a lot of games like that, but it just feels even more crazy to see that here, honestly. And yeah. And yeah. And then that was part 9, and now for part 10. This here is Miles and stuff.
What the hell? Establishment. Yeah. Real high class. So?
Well, my dear boy, you've got to understand. I'm about the public figure. I'm always in the spotlight, right?
Finger and clear eyes should keep my mouth shut before someone gets to the match.
And yeah. And then obviously meet up with Miles Cord.
Other people do the actual work? Yeah, I can tell. Mr. Kurt, I'm investigating the unfortunate demise of one Betty Lynch. I have reason to believe your boss, mayoral candidate Milford Soyer, knew her.
Remember that name, Milford Soyer, because he's going to be very important.
I'm celeb. Show up whether you want them or not. Hoping to ride in coattails.
See, that's funny because that's real cozy.
Hey, boys circling out parties like some...
Kurt, is that...
Listen, Shaker, I don't like where this is going.
And yeah, he sends just to pretty much, go screw yourself and stuff, but we don't care. But yeah, and that's part 10 and stuff. So now that was part 10, so moving on to, of course, part 11. Part 11. So obviously we're exploring, finally to heading to the Kurtzville area. And of course doing more of these puzzles. The only thing I really don't like maybe about this, it's kind of more of a nitpick. It's probably those like puzzles where you have to use your tongue and stuff. But I think that they're still pretty short though. They're just kind of the same thing. Then we fight this ghost.
Well, I'd rather not miss that.
And of course the guy, gets, gangbanged, gets like, ass whooped by his 3 like ex-wives. How the hell did that guy even got 3 wives? I have no clue. Alright, that was part 11, now part 12. We explore more of this inside area, and then finally after that we're done. Then we do this boozoo, and then we have to chase one of the cook officers, who sort of been sending out his, like, I don't know, gang after us. And of course, so we have to find the bozo, what's his name and stuff. Oh.
I swear, officer, ow! I've been law-abiding since breakfast. Hey, unit!
And yeah, we defeat one of these crook cops, and we save the bozo guy.
Oh, my precious savior. More noble than a whole truckload of blood of...
Tammy's the one you should be thanking. Just tell me what I need to know.
And then we get some information.
Of course.
Bounce around where exactly?
And then after we talk to the bozo guy, and I guess save him and stuff from these crooked cops, we then just go here. And yeah. And yeah, we jump there. And then finally we're done with that island stuff, and yeah. And yeah, that was it. No, and that was part 12, so now for part 13. Can it load, please? Okay, and here's part 13 now. And yeah, we're still exploring more in the sewer area and stuff. And yeah. And then of course we make it to this mine area. And then after that... And yeah, pretty much. And totally not Super Mario Bros. And yeah, want to go through the wall. And that was part 13. Now we move on to part 14 and stuff. And yeah. And yeah. And now we have to defeat the cultists and stuff. And yeah. And here's the cheese lager boss.
Rest in cheese, buddy.
And he died and stuff, and yeah. So I guess that case has been solved, but that cheese lager guy died, and yeah.
By those crooked creeps in fancy suits, flaunting their ill-gotten authority. You know that better than anyone, Corny.
Excuse me?
We've both seen war, Corny. Or did that slip your mind?
Yeah, basically that. We were the tools and stuff for that kind of war.
All the
And that was part 14. And now for part 15 and stuff now. And yeah, alright. Going through here again and stuff, and going through this sewer area. And yeah, basically do what we can and stuff. Shut down the power cord. And yeah. And now part 16 and stuff. And yeah. And of course, we make it to this circus parade and stuff with a bunch of clowns, literally and figuratively. And then we meet up with a new guy and stuff, who's basically going to be chasing us and stuff again. And that was part 16, and now part 17. And yeah, we basically unlock more weapons, and then obviously the case for that was solved, but... And yeah. Blue cheese and stuff. And then we do a side job for this guy, and then we do back to the main job, where we now hunt down the guy who was behind this whole corrupted police crap and stuff, this quote cops. And yeah, pretty much. And now part 18. And yeah, pretty much. And then of course secret found and stuff. And then finally here comes Captain Sims, the guy behind this Beyond Corruption. And yeah, pretty much. And yeah, this was one of the guys behind this corruption and stuff, and he was the man behind this corruption and stuff, and yeah, and we have to whoop Captain Sim's ass and stuff, and yeah, pretty much.
It's just
And unfortunately, while we defeated him once and for all, of course, never meet your heroes, they say, but yeah.
a shining star of the Force. Turned out to be the mastermind behind the crooked cops.
Never meet your heroes, guys. That's one thing I learned from this game.
It's messier than a trench coat and a cheese burst. Crooked cops, cheap crews are heading home.
Look, Jack, don't get me wrong. That's good news. Great even. Warms the old ticker. Maybe even earn rodents like me can take a bus without getting face planted in a rose bed simply for being short. It ain't over.
Yeah, to be fair, he's talking really truthfully.
All right.
Well, the corrupted chief is gone, though. There might be another one coming back for no reason, because somebody just wants to rise to power and stuff. But for now, the corruption is gone for good. And that was part 18. And now, of course, part 19 and stuff. And yeah.
No amount of perfume can cover up the rot bin.
And of course, to this perfume and stuff.
You need switch it.
Tammy, of course, into this
Objection.
this judge and stuff. But of course, before I do that, we have to deal with that damn, okay, so do you remember when I said that, of course, this would be one of our antagonists? Well, it turns out she lied to us. This bitch lied to us and stuff. And yeah, and now we have to get our revenge on her and stuff. And then we defeat her judge, and then this is the first time we see color in this game. But unfortunately, she flew it off.
Slipped right out. Got away.
And yeah.
But it didn't feel like a bust. The mystery was solved.
Well, mystery was solved, I guess. And yeah. So yeah, I guess we just still solved that mystery or something. And that was part 19, and now for part 20 and stuff. And yeah, here we go, part 20. Of course, we talk to Wanda and Stilton, and we go to this other Curdville's house and stuff. And yeah, pretty much. And yeah, we explore the sewer and stuff. We get some hypnotized. And yeah, that was part 20. And then now part 21. And of course, we get a new weapon, which is this, whatever this brain thing is, but we obtain a new weapon and stuff. Meaning that brain and stuff. And then we go to a hell dimension, and then we get a Doomslayer chainsaw and stuff. And yeah, and then we meet up Steve, our old war buddy from the war that we fought in and stuff. And yeah.
Because he was still dirty. Still a bastard. Still that cynical son of a... But he was my war buddy. And he wasn't dead. Part of me hated him.
And yeah, here's the prequel. This is what Jack looked like, and Stilton. They were both military, of course. He was a soldier and a sergeant, and yeah.
Maybe he changed. Maybe he finally grew a conscience. Or maybe I'm the fool, growing yet another soft... How I slice it.
And yeah. Yeah, so hey, at least our buddy Steve is alive with this area of corruption happening. So yeah, that was part 21, and now for part 22. And yeah, pretty much. Anyways, we talk to Wanda again, and then obviously we go on a new investigation now and stuff. And this time this is gonna be leading up to the, you know, mayor and stuff. The guy behind all of this crooked cops. The sergeant, Captain Sims, was obviously the first one we took down. Now we have to take down the second act, which is the final act, and yeah. That was part 22. We're almost there, guys. I'm sorry if this is taking a very long time and stuff, because obviously I was having too much fun with this game, but yeah, that's part 22. Now for part 23. Hold on. Dang it, I really hate when it does this sometimes. Sorry about that. Okay, anyways, now back to where we are. And now we have to defeat some professor and stuff. Totally not Medic from TF2, honestly. Ziobatach. But anyways, after we defeat his submarine.
Rest.
So I guess that case has been solved, but uh-oh. Our entire area is on fire. And now we have to escape. And who the hell did this? Well, that certain mayor did this to us. He knew we had all the evidence, and now we knew we had to do this. And of course, there was Steve there to help us out and stuff, and yeah. And first we have to pay Mr. Steve, our old war buddy friend, a visit and stuff, so yeah. That's part 23, now moving on to part 24. And yeah, so now we're about to go to his mansion and stuff to pay him a visit. And yeah, well, for the second final time and stuff. And then after that, we go through that part. And then obviously and stuff. And then, well, we don't necessarily meet Steve though, but we do find this thing. And it's leading up to Milford Soyer. And finally, well, remember when I said that at the end, that guy at the intro, that all the way back in the opening? Well, that was Milford Soyer. That was the main antagonist of this game, creating all of this war. And now, finally, we know who's behind all of this. And yeah, that's part 24. So now part 25 and stuff. And here we go. So, finally we go through, once again, this dock area and stuff. And yeah. We meet up with Wanda and stuff, talking about some investigating details. And here's the guy, Milford and Soyer.
That's right. Not like anyone's recording. Even those old bald eggheads don't have that kind of tech. Hold on. Why still? Can't just have a nice bunch of artists like crazy at that X-Men tornado in the opera house. Nobody's stealing the man seat from me. Especially not a rat like Stu. Please, that guy's got no point in his thing. Really?
And here it is. This was the piece of shit that was behind all of this. Remember all the way back in the opening? This guy is Milford Soyer, the main ultimate big bad antagonist of this game. The most evil. And he's the reason he's been doing all this crime and corrupting the hell out of Mouseburg. And now finally, it's now finally time to defeat him and stuff. That's part 25, and now part 26 now. The chase is on. We are about to finally serve justice to this guy. So he can stop finally running away. And yeah. So here we go. And of course we chase him and stuff. Montage. And remember this area from the opening? Here, was the area. This is why I'm saying that all of this was a prequel. And now we finally caught up with the opening and stuff. And I have to say, that's really honestly a clever way. I really like when a video game does that, honestly. And yeah. And yeah, overall. So now, this is part 27 now, so here it is. This is that balloon area I was telling you guys about. And yeah. And here we go. So now, does this all look familiar to you guys? Oh, this looks familiar. And yeah, so now here's back to that exact same area. But here comes Tammy saving us. Tammy, you're a real friend. You're real loyal here. Anyways, of course, oh yeah, I have to redo this part, but here it is finally. We shoot this thing, and finally, and yeah, we go through there. So now, and yeah, that was part 27, and now before we move on to part 28, the final part and stuff. Alright, and now we are about to finish this once and for all, of course. Part 28, the finale. So here we go. And yeah, here we go. Part 28. Oh yeah, I kind of spoiled it. Here's the credits. Let's do this. Of course, I'm going to like this and stuff. Okay, so, sorry about that, guys. But yeah, all right. Anyways, let's end this. Part 28, the finale of Mouseburg for Hire. Here we go. And finally, we are about to beat this Milford Soyer asshole once and for all. The guy behind all of this. The guy who did all this corruption, who corrupted the police force, who's been doing all this gang intervention, been stealing goods, been exploiting profits. But now that ends today, with this net worth criminal being destroyed by our raw justice hard fist. And yeah. Oh, hold on, I want to see the part. And here it is. Alright, it's time to serve justice to you, piece of shit. You damn corrupted leader. And yeah, I had to take a lot of screenshots here. Yeah, he used to be my Jack. Just finish him off. Die. Jerk. Finally, the Triad is gone. No more. And here's John. We finally saved our homie John here. And yeah, John, glad you're okay. And finally, that was Mouseburg for Hire. What an amazing adventure this was, from start to finish. But what an amazing adventure that was. Just peak cinema. And yeah. And finally, Jack Pepper himself can finally retire. We saved John Brown, our homie. It is. Well, unless DLC comes out. But it's finally over. We saved Mouseburg, saved its safety, its freedom, and its peace. And finally, the citizens can live happily ever after, doing and living freely. And hopefully Stilton do a good job with the city and stuff.
I'm done.
Exactly.
Who am I kidding? The journey goes on straight through the night, hoping dawn remembers to show.
You said it, Jack Pepper. And that's it. Jack Pepper finally retires for good. Thank you, Jack Pepper, for this adventure. And that's Mouse PI for Hire. All I can say, Geek Cinema Experiments, man. From start to finish, this was an amazing video game, honestly. And this music is bopping and stuff. But overall, yeah, that was an amazing video game. I loved everything about this, especially the 1930s art style. Similar like with Cuphead and Bandy. It's happy to see another indie game to finally receive this treatment because, let me tell you guys, this is not an easy art style to do, okay? Let me tell you that. This art style is very, very hard to get right. But if somebody can get it right, an indie studio can get it right, then it's peak. And yeah. Basically, it's either if Cuphead was an FPS or Mickey Mouse met Bioshock, but yeah. But yeah, that's overall my review on Mouse Pie for Hire. I hope you guys enjoy it, and this is ESS3 saying one final goodbye, and farewell to Mouse Pie for Hire. The end, indeed. And yeah, that was Mouse PI for Hire. And with that said, that's my overall Let's Play series of Mouse PI for Hire. So yeah, overall, an amazing video game from start to finish. I already said it again and again, but yeah. Thank you, Fumi Games, for making one. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm just going to call it F Games, if that's okay with them. But thank you, F Games, for making an amazing masterpiece from start to finish and stuff. Yeah, I obviously have the same page loaded and stuff. But yeah. And of course, you guys deserve the praise and stuff that you guys got. And yeah, so thank you guys for making one of the best video games of all time, honestly. This will go down as one of my new favorite absolute indie games of all time. I'm so happy I saw the trailer and stuff, and this was my comment when I first bought it. And now that I'm done, what an amazing adventure this was. So yeah, thank you Mouse Pie for Hire, and yeah. And this is ESS3 saying one final goodbye and farewell. And of course, before I do that, thank you guys obviously also for the 2,000 subscribers. I absolutely cannot thank you guys enough. Holy just shit, man. I can't believe I just made it this fast, honestly. And yeah. But thank you guys for watching my Mouse PI for Hire review. And yeah, this is ESS3 saying one final goodbye and farewell, Mouse PI for Hire.